How are you?
I'm good. I'm slightly sleepy because I'm basically I'm completely nocturnal, really. I see clients in the afternoon and evening.
Oh, wow.
And
Oh, that's good. So this is a good
I'm
time for you then, 6 p.m.
this is a good yeah, this is a really good time for me.
Yeah, well, everyone's always on about how, early rises are the most productive. That's a like pack of nonsense, isn't it?
Ugh,
Like if you naturally are nocturnal, then
no.
that's you.
Yeah, some people are. I think I am. Also, I just the only difference between early risers and the rest of us is that they just are like terminally smug about it. I think that's the only real difference. They're constantly so pleased with themselves.
I know the feeling because I tried it out for a while of getting up at 6 a.m. and getting like a Peloton in and then meditating. And the self-righteousness that was dripping out of my pores when I did that for the few days that I did and telling everybody about it. Like just
Yeah.
like the self-obsession, like my own self-obsession was just not good. I had to stop.
Look at me, Queen.
Look at
I
me,
woke
Queen.
up at 6.
Look at me. I'm gonna give you an intro and then we'll get right into it. But today's a very special
Okay.
day because I'm actually going to sing the intro song live rather than using the recording, if
Whoa.
that's okay. So here we go.
Okay.
Zaddy Zone, welcome to the Zaddy Zone. Zaddy Zone, welcome to the Zaddy Zone. Ooh. Today I am talking to Seerut Chawla. She is a psychotherapist based in London where she works in a private practice. She trained at the University of Roehampton in integrative counselling and psychotherapy and previously worked at the NHS. She describes herself as a bit of a nerd and a big Lord of the Rings fan, and her mantra is, I am not the monk on the mountain, I am in the trenches with you. Seerut, g'day.
Hi, g'day, Luke. How you
How's my
going?
pronunciation of Seerut? Is that good?
That's insanely good. It's
Wow.
like you're in the 99th percentile of pronouncing my name.
That means a lot. And then Chawla, how's that?
The traditional pronunciation is Chawla, but
Chawla.
Chola is a good anglicized one. Yeah.
Well, as long as I'm giving you a good anglicized version, that's
Yeah.
really all I care about.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you today a lot about. You seem to take issue with a lot of mainstream social media therapy. Why is that?
The first phrase that came to mind was because it's crap, but I don't think that's a very good, sensible answer to give you on a podcast. I take issue with it for a lot of reasons. I think, first and foremost, because it is crap. Also because it's kind of, all the advice you see is, pitched towards the person of, you are definitely the wounded one. You're innocent, you're hurt, you're so special, and only I see you for the way that you are, and I love you, even though the person who's saying this stuff doesn't know who the fuck they're talking to, but they know all about you and how special and lovely you are. And then there's almost nothing about, they'll talk about bullying, but always from the perspective of you're the bullied one. What about the people, that everyone's not someone is bullying you, right? So that's kind of like, that's one of the reasons, is that we have this complete dearth of responsibility.
So part of what you're talking about is like there's a lack of accountability in this kind of
Yes.
social media therapy.
Yeah. So, actually that's a two-pronged thing, because on one hand, there's a complete lack of personal accountability, while you have the word accountability weaponized against other people in this sort of cancel culture kind of way. And it's, the two groups, the kind of social justice therapy, they very much kind of converge. The Venn diagram, the central bit is massive. I think it's much bigger than the sides. Especially because so much of this is really American dominated, and their culture kind of has the culture of the world by the scruff of the collar. So
Yeah,
you have this sort of, don't you think? Like
I
they
really think
just
that.
they dictate. Yeah. So you've got complete lack of personal responsibility. You don't have to behave like an adult. You're wounded. Aren't you special? You deserve everything. And on the other hand, everyone else is a bad, evil, abusive bigot, and you have to hold them accountable. And it's completely okay if you do to them every single abusive thing that if it was done to you, we'd be, screaming the house down.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I actually don't think that forgiveness is very talked about at all in the current vernacular. Just in general, it seems to be that like, oh, the past transgressions need to be returned with the same force that they were given with, rather than forgiveness is never ever talked about. It's like, oh, now particularly when it comes to talking about race, it's like, oh, now you know what it's like. Isn't that good that you know what it's like to be looked over, or to be ignored, or to be slightly oppressed, whatever, not getting the job? It's like, good, we're glad you know that now. It's like, now you know how it feels, rather than like an element of forgiveness which says like, I never want you to go through it because it's awful.
It's really vengeful, actually, when you put it that way. And there's no place for redemption. And I think that's both in what you just described and the kind of cancel-y kind of stuff. There's no place for forgiveness. There's no place for redemption. And I kind of look at the social justice American stuff as very, very religious. Privilege is like original sin. And then you kind of have, it's like the Pharisees, the Puritans, it's all in there. The witch hunting and witch burning. But there's none of the good bits of religion. There's none of the kind of redemption. There's no forgiveness. There's no sort of, before you, can't remember the Bible quote or verse where it's sort of like, before you point into the speck in your neighbor's eye, look at the plank in your own, or whatever that is.
Yeah.
There's none of the good bits of religion. And that's a bit worrying, because then you get kind of, well, religion has been known to do some fucked up shit in the world.
Yeah.
And you get that.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the whole plank, get the speck out of your own eye before you take the plank out of yours is, I often think about it as, instead of saying that, for instance, that all white people are racist, as a white person, if you were to say all white people are racist, it's like, no, I think that begins with you. Don't speak about other people and what they are. If you want to speak about how you are, then that's a good, start with yourself before generalizing about an entire, culture, race, what have you. People tend to do that a lot nowadays and say, and it's like, speak about the only thing that you can, which is you.
Yeah. And do what you can, which is what you can, rather than you do this and you do that and you fix this for me. What are you doing for yourself and for the people around you? Like, if every single person did what they could, imagine the systemic change we'd have just from that alone. And, kind of thinking about your local area, or, how do you treat your own family? Do you treat your family like shit and then go on the internet and shout at everybody else? That's all those things. They come together. And like you said about you get this a lot, and I see this a lot online. It's white people shouting at other white people about how they're, you're racist and white people are such trash, and sort of like, you looked in the mirror lately, because sort of, I'm a good white person,
right?
And the rest of, and again, that feels really sort of, again, it comes back to like ideas of sin and privilege and all those kinds of
Yeah, you've kind of gotten to a place where I wanted to get to later in the podcast, but let's tackle it now, because I kind of came to this conclusion during 2020. I was in Australia, and I thought to myself, I'm going to spend more time in my garden. I'm going to spend more time with my family than looking on social media and watching the news. And, everything is telling me that the world is falling apart. But if I can have a cup of tea with my neighbor and we don't want to kill each other, then I don't think the world is actually falling apart. And if I can treat my neighbor well and like kind of create a little community just by saying hello to people when you walk down the street who live near you, all of a sudden you've created this little community. Anyway, but I told my friend that I was going to spend more time, in my garden and not so much time being informed by what everything wants me to know. And she said that, well, that's white privilege. In order to, like, you know, it's your privilege to not be informed by what's going on because you don't think it affects you. What do you think about that?
Interesting. Immediately, that reminds me of a tweet I put up, I think in 2020, and I said, I wasn't very, my privilege of not being informed about the world because I was too busy trying to. It was when I was almost, I basically homeless, going to the food bank, on disability. I had more than one job. It was a disaster, the whole situation. And no, I didn't know what the fuck was going on in the world, and it wasn't because of privilege. So that argument is dead right there. And it's a very convenient sort of set of rules, isn't it? It's a very small window of constantly shifting rules, constantly changing words that you're allowed to say. So the rule that works today, tomorrow or day after will get you cancelled. And one of those rules is if you don't know if you're not constantly plugged in and destroying yourself, you're privileged. Well, give me a good reason. You can't just say things unless it has a good reason behind it. And like, it sort of comes back to their whole, the personal is political and this and that and the other. And no, what are you gonna, this is the privilege of Western middle class university educated people who have the time to be sitting there at home on their sofa scrolling on the news. What about anybody who's working class or has two jobs or is struggling? Are they privileged because they can't look at the news all day?
Mm-hmm. You have to be able to almost afford to be informed. For most people,
Yes.
It's like, I just want to get the meal on the table. I just want the next check. I need the next check. You almost have to be able to afford a couple of hours of non-work to be informed. And then here's my main question to you about this is, what does being informed actually do? Like, does it shift does it change things? Does it affect the world? Yeah, that's my question.
I think that's a really good question, actually. And I think one that almost never gets answered. So that's a really good question, or asked rather, not answered. On one hand, you think, yeah, you should be, at least have some, idea of the world around you. It again comes back to that sort of, you're not the only one, you're not the main character of the world. Things like there's a war in Ukraine and people are dying and, there's, whatever, there are things happening everywhere that are not great. And no, you shouldn't be sitting there with your fingers in your ears and ignoring everything. You should have some awareness, but you also shouldn't be so plugged into it that you're just riling yourself up constantly. And I think that's part of it. I think that's why they want everyone plugged in. So you're constantly riled up and outraged and joining the outrage mob. So it's a bit of a balance, and it's an individual thing. Like the smallest minority is the individual who's completely ignored in all of this. And it's an individual case by case thing. So if you're not doing very well today, maybe avoid the news. That's not going to help.
Yeah.
And if you're, sort of have the time, you're politically inclined and it helps you to be sort of plugged in and you're interested and you like organizing and doing help, plug in, do it. But the sort of like the rule applies to everyone all the time. I don't like that. It's really incredibly unhelpful. Yeah,
no. And so how do you deal with, you must have people in your practice who are chronically logged in to everything that's going on. I mean, it's hard not to be, in fairness. Yeah. So what advice do you usually give to them? Is to like really be aware of what state you're in when you are plugged in?
So it depends, in psychotherapy, as opposed to coaching or any other kind of, helping profession, it's never about what I think the right thing is. It's about what the right thing for that client is. So if you have a client who's, that's what her life is or his life is, to be very plugged in and to be very involved with it, you'd kind of more look at, well, why why is that really helpful to you?
Mm.
And what do you get out of it? And what are some of the impacts around it? And what need is this meeting in your life? And why does it feel so important? You look at those kinds of questions and help them come to an answer that kind of works for them. If it was general me kind of being a nosy busybody with someone I know and giving them advice, it would be, use your brain. Like, you don't need to be logged into this all the time. But again, like if you're like me and I imagine you chronically online, it's a deluge. You cannot escape. It's just coming at you all the time from all angles. Mm-hmm. That's just the reality of the world we live in now.
Yes.
We're hit with this stuff.
I saw somebody was writing about there was some social media app, I think, that got rid of all the Kardashian news from your feed. And I was like, well, I want one that gets rid of all news. Like, I don't want any news, like, so that I can go online and see what my friends are up to, or, what's going on that's light. Yeah. Give me light. I want to go on and have it be a reality TV show, go online, have it be a reality TV show rather than, oh, isn't this horrible? News. What's going on in this part of the world? Or isn't this terrible? What's happening to this person over here? Like, it's like, I
agree. I think it's so funny because as soon as you said that, I thought, I don't mind the Kardashian news. I don't get the mindless Kardashian hate, actually. I think they're quite entertaining.
I agree. I think hatred for something like that is really lame. Like, if you hate the Kardashians, so like, lame. Really, that's what you hate?
Yeah, I know, with everything in the world. That's what you've chosen to focus your ire on.
Right now, there's a...
Talk about privilege. There you go.
Right. I mean, so right now there's a video of mine that's going viral. So what happens when a video goes viral is eventually, after weeks and weeks, there are still these comments coming in from these strange people who are just so, like, none of the comments are good. They're never interesting, but it's like, so I made fun of Kim Kardashian because she pretended to eat the Beyond Meat burger, right?
Yeah.
And so these people are commenting and going, she loves to eat meat. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? Would you just shut up? And then other people like, everything's fake about her. Fake ass, fake tits, fake face, fake meat. And I'm like, this is not, don't hate her. The poor little, like, I don't feel sorry for her, but it's like the hatred is real.
I think it's interesting because a lot of the people who really hate her are the same people who go on about, you have internalized misogyny and, patriarchy and stuff like that. But hating Kim Kardashian, who's not white, by the way, isn't she Armenian, is absolutely fine. Yeah. That's allowed. Why? And I think that's really interesting as well, because she is extraordinarily beautiful, whether it's, genetic or
otherwise.
Otherwise, she is extraordinarily beautiful. And I notice it's a lot of the extraordinarily beautiful, successful women who are really, in big trouble with the internalized misogyny, patriarchy crowd.
Yes. Why? Yeah. Why? We should look into that at some point, I think.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you about words that I feel are overused, that a psychotherapist you'd know a lot about. For instance, I feel like there's an overuse of the word trauma. Do you agree?
Definitely. Like, jump up and down. Fuck yes. Level agree. Yeah, Jesus fucking Christ. It's a complete disaster. So the word trauma has been subject to something we call concept creep. It's when the original concept is sort of, let's say, a different, much more watered down concept has crept onto it and diluted the meaning of a word that's quite important, like trauma, like racism, like bigotry, like misogyny, like all the words that we have, out in the public sphere at the minute. And trauma is a very specific thing. It's when you've been terrorized in a way that it leaves you with an imprint of that terrorizing event or situation or, what you went through. And it leaves you with something akin to it's almost like an imprint. It's like a branding or an imprint, but on your nervous system, on your psyche, and it leaves you with sort of like almost like living with a disability, because the symptoms are almost like as intense and as chronic as a chronic illness of some kind. So like chronic sleep disturbances, chronic nightmares, night terrors, intrusive thoughts, avoidance, panic. There's so much there, and it's sort of living with hypervigilance, like a creak in the floor and you're that's it, done for. So it's a very, very specific thing. It's not, oh, mommy didn't buy me a pony and now I'm like, that's not trauma. And you have, so a word like that is quite important. And there's not that many people compared to sort of the amount of people, claiming trauma versus those that actually have been traumatized. It's a pretty stark difference. And it's taking away the only language people with PTSD have to describe their experience, which is an issue. They've created this huge industry around the word trauma. So all these self-help gurus and just a lot of people who are capitalizing on this word having its day in the sun and making a lot of money off it. But again, PTSD is completely divorced from that. And generally, just normal life experiences are now trauma. Like, nobody had an ideal childhood. Nobody has an ideal life. Life isn't ideal. Life is fucking difficult. But, in this kind of you're so special Western world, not all of the West, but in this little bubble, anything that's not ideal is trauma or oppression.
That's it. I do feel like, what you mentioned, like the illustration of mummy didn't buy me a pony is part of the problem. It's that we haven't had so many of us have not had difficult lives. So that anything that it was slightly difficult is, well, that's just the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Yeah.
It's funny. I was talking to someone I know who's Indian a couple of years ago, actually, when I was really getting into this stuff, who's a bit older. And I was explaining about all this trauma stuff and the frustration I had with what I'm seeing and me being cancelled and talking and just going. And his answer was, yeah, the problem is this generation hasn't had a war. And while I don't think we should have had a war, the underlying, the philosophy or the message that's pointing to is that you haven't known anything really difficult, just like you said. You haven't known, when you think about everything that goes, along with the war, it's not just that what you immediately think of, it's everyone who's left behind and the rationing and the fear and the, like in London in the 40s, hiding from bombs and stuff like that. And then how you have to come together as a community, otherwise you wouldn't really survive. And none of those elements necessarily exist anymore. You don't really need each other to survive. So you have more and more people living in this sort of isolated, overly self-focused, neurotic kind of way. And that's really being encouraged by this, this messaging and this content, is that you should be quite neurotic and thinking about yourself all the time and some sort of like emotional upheaval all the time. And that means that you're healing. While just, divorced from reality and from other people. That's a great way to stay not feeling very good.
Right. It reminds me of that quote, but I never get it right. It's something to do with like soft men make war, which make tough men, which create peace, which create soft men, which create war, which create, or something like that. It's something like that.
Soft men create hard times create strong men create good times create weak men. Something like that. Yes. Yeah, I know the one.
Yeah, Joe Rogan says it all the time, unsurprisingly. But but I think it's interesting, and I do think it's worth thinking about. To like generationally, if you were born at any other time in history, would you be worse off? And the answer is, the 90s were really nice. I really wish I knew the 90s better. I reckon the 70s and 80s were probably kind of nice too. unless you went to Vietnam,
Yeah.
or unless you were in some other, conflict from around the world. But I want to talk about, what about gaslighting? That's another one.
What about gaslighting?
I love
Yeah, I know.
the gaslighting, love bombing phrasing. Like, it's like, oh my God, you're gaslighting, you're gatekeeping, you're love bombing. I'm like, what are these terms? And when did they become so mainstream that you just toss them around like it's nothing?
That's the thing with this kind of like over therapized culture where everything is, like everything is some idiotic jargony thing that's not anything to do with psychology or psychotherapy, by the way. Let me add, this is like some pop psychology, weird American stuff. So gaslighting is from this film called, I think it was actually called Gaslight or Gaslighting. I can't remember. And this guy is making his wife think that she's losing it and that she's going crazy because he keeps kind of messing with these lights that are lit by gas lights, and she keeps thinking they're on. He's secretly lighting them and then telling her that, right, you're losing it because nothing's on there and you're seeing things that aren't actually there. So gaslighting is actually meant to be when you make somebody sort of lose their grip on reality or question their sense of reality. Not when someone disagrees with you. That's not gaslighting. So it's not a technical term, and you're not even using a non-technical term correctly. So,
I love it.
That's not a thing.
This
then, love bombing is meant to be, again, not a technical term, but it's apparently when... So there's a whole subculture of people who believe they're empaths and that narcissists target them because they are so... And according to them, again, they completely ignore, they don't know what narcissism is and that narcissism is different to narcissistic personality disorder. And there's something called healthy narcissism, which most people actually have. If you have any degree of self-esteem, you actually have some narcissism within you. But anyway, so narcissists are these demons who've come straight out of like, Lucifer's butt and come onto Earth. And they're targeting these special, like, empaths who are, dropped down from heaven, and they have so much goodness in them that the demon narcissists are trying to get them and suck out the goodness. And so they first love bomb you, so they confuse you with their demon narcissist ways. And that's love bomb. And okay, so you can kind of like, outside of this subculture, people use it in a less silly way as well. And the love bombing is sort of when someone's kind of disingenuous, but they're paying you way too many compliments and they're kind of, ingratiating themselves to you, or they're not. And you know what it's like you get that on social media quite a bit as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's a real, I feel like love bombing is a real thing, like in the sense that I've probably done it to people, but, in my defense, or how I would defend myself was like, I was just figuring it out too. I thought that I really liked you more than I did, and then figured out that I don't actually like you that much. Then I leave. Then you go, you love bomb me, which is fair. But some people are figuring it out. And, you figure it out in a positive way. You go, you're beautiful. And they're like, oh my gosh. And you're like, I really like you. Because you do. And then, you can mess with people. So, like, I think love bombing is legitimate. But
that doesn't sound at all like love bombing to me. That sounds just like what happens when you're dating, or, especially if you're like not that... Even if you're experienced or not experienced, it can happen to anybody. You think you like someone more than you like them. And you maybe invest a bit more than you meant to, and then you realize and you pull back and course correct. That's life. People fall in love, fall out of love, like each other, don't like each other, change their mind. That's what happens. I think this is part of the problem of trying to codify everything and then give everything like a sinister spin. Like, I think it's a lot of people who have serious anxiety around the fact that most of this stuff, not only will you not understand in your lifetime, and no one will, you will never be able to control it. You can't quantify why somebody likes someone or doesn't. You can't quantify why attraction happens. Like, even if you put down all the pheromones and do all the studies, and there's still always going to be confounding variables. You're never going to know. There's, most of the mysteries of the world we're never going to know. You're never going to be able to control, why things happen or don't happen, or the outcome of your, the effort that you put in. And unfortunately or fortunately, that's what life is. And you can just embrace that and be quite liberated by it. I think that's the other side of the coin, which is nice.
Yeah, there's something you touched on there that I just want to double click on. There was this, I think about the age that I am. I'm so happy that when I was out there dating and, getting broken up with or breaking up with people, that there wasn't social media right at the center of our lives, that I could complain about it, write about it, post about it, because I would have. Like if I was 18, when I got first heartbroken, I was 18 and I had TikTok, I would have embarrassed myself like crazy and posted about it and made up and called her a narcissist and made up names, said things about her that were untrue or that were just like too much, and then people would have done the same thing to me. And I think it's like I see friends now who are young and they post. I'm like, we just used to keep that to ourselves. Like if you're going through heartbreak, you don't have to post about it. And I saw her. There's a woman online who I'm a friend of. She's got quite a following, and there was a guy who like met her off the internet and was like, I'm not really into it. Maybe was a bit harsh with her after meeting her because he thought that she'd look a bit better than she did. He told her that like an idiot, pushed her away, and then she went on to she let like everybody know on TikTok. She wrote to his university, like she had people, hordes of her followers writing to the university. Like, it's like, I'm so glad I didn't have social media back then.
You know what this makes me think of is, this came up recently in the Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing, is that, not that I'm like, I don't want to get into who's and what, who did what, blah, blah, blah. But one of the forensic psychologists said something about how I think it's been documented that women with personality disorders weaponize bureaucracy against men. So this is another way to do that now. And this is another. So when you come back to all the women who hate Kim Kardashian it's another way. Social media has given this antisocial impulse, especially people who have this stronger kind of neurotic personality organization, and they can't really handle those negative feelings and sit with them, bear with them, or maybe a lack of self-awareness about what role did you play, or maybe just a bit of, I don't know, acceptance. Yeah, they didn't like me, I guess I'm not their cup of tea. Okay, I'll move on or find someone else. And you have this way that allows impulsivity to, there's no mitigation for impulsivity whatsoever. There's no, are you sure you want to say that? It's post. You can go on Twitter, you can go on TikTok, and it's out in the public sphere. And you can incite a mob of hundreds of thousands or even millions of people, or get someone writing to a university because they rejected a date. Right. And what, his academic career is possibly ruined now because he didn't like someone on a date. Yes. Because of social media. Yep. So yeah, this is it's really worrying. It's really, really worrying. It is. I have a feeling I look at social media kind of like I look at cocaine. Like, you're never going to be able to use cocaine carefully, ever. So you have to know what you're using and bear it in mind. Like, I'm going online right now, I'm going to post and ghost. Or, I'm going to give myself 20 minutes to do some comments and then get off it again. Or delete it off the weekends, or whatever it is. Like, you have to know what you're dealing with, and you have to bear in mind that the longer I'm on here, the more it's fucking with my head, and my assessment of reality is going to get, messed with a bit. The more you notice, if you've been online for 20 minutes or more, you start getting a bit aggravated. It starts to happen. Yeah. Or you're scrolling and you get a bit more disoriented. And I found every time I have a break, it takes a day or two, but it's like a mind virus has been taken out of your head. It just, your perspective changes so massively. And I hope, and I predict maybe in the future, we're going to look at this like a bit like we look at smoking. And just like you have warnings on cigarette packages, I hope we have warnings on social media, because there's so much here we don't know what you don't know what it does to people. The people who make it don't let their kids have it. What does that tell you? You know?
Yeah. Have you got any tips for ways to get off social media when you do take a break? How do you police that upon yourself?
One, you've got to be realistic about the fact that this is an addictive thing. It not addictive in the same sense of like a physiological dependence, but there's a dopamine seeking sense. There's a like a behavioral habitual thing that's happened. You know, you open your phone before you realize that you've opened Instagram, because your thumb just goes there automatically.
Yeah.
You're not planning to open it, you just open it. So all that stuff is gonna happen. I think if you really seriously want to have a break, you're going to have to delete it off your phone altogether. Or on the other hand, you give yourself, you know, you don't have to go all the way. You can set limits on it. I think most phones have a limit thing that, right, I can have, if you're on it all day long, you can change it. You know, set a limit for 3 hours. When I hit my 3-hour limit, then I'm locked out of Instagram. For me, I just stopped because I use it in not just as a consumer, but I post stuff. So I just decided it was the most recent break I had wasn't planned. I started to feel really, really unwell and thought, I don't think I physically can actually do anything extraneous for the next few days, and took a break. And within a few days, all the symptoms I was having that felt like mental health sort of difficulty kind of symptoms disappeared, and it was just social media stress. And it's completely changed the way I look at it, and what you want to get involved in and not get involved in, and who you give access to. And you know, like, my platform's fairly big, yours is way bigger, and you know, when you have like, it's you versus 200k or 900k or 1 million people, you don't have time to give someone the chance to come back and be annoying the second time, or be rude or abusive the second time. I think you kind of have to have that. You have to have that approach with social media. You wouldn't have it in real life. Someone's a little bit rude to you, don't cut them off. In social media, I think you have to be like that. You have to kind of mitigate the worst elements of social media by being a bit proactive about them. The time you spend on there, who gets to have access to you, you know, what you focus on, what you look at, you know?
Yeah, I think that's really good. I mean, I think that's really good advice about being kind of militant about really negative, awful people who want to misunderstand you, who want to hate you, who want to just be trolls. Get rid of them, block them, just get rid of them. There's no time. We don't have time for that.
No.
But the other thing is taking a break. I like taking a break. I remember at the beginning of 2020 when COVID was coming out, was people who did have those notifications on their phone that you've been online for 20 minutes. Everyone was like, lol, like there's no fucking way. Beginning of COVID was like, it's 6 hours a day online. We have nothing else to do.
Easy.
Yeah. Easy. It's disgraceful.
If not more, honestly, I swear, I would probably, if I went back and looked, I'm sure it would say 10, 12 hours a day, easily.
Oh, yeah, and 6 was just a way of not embarrassing myself. I have no doubt it was 10 as well. Embarrassing. But and I think that has had an effect on where we're at now. Is like, we're not off on our phones any less. We're on our phones just as much as we were when we were in lockdown.
Yeah, and I think that's something really important actually to think about, is that we've had 2 years now where life was completely upended and all these things changed. And I think the amount of time we were on social media the last 2 years are, you know, all the things we've talked about, cancel culture and some of the stuff that happens online is a direct consequence of that. I think they were going to happen anyway, but they accelerated because of how online we were in the last 2 years. Completely lost. Yeah, so we've got to start to think about renegotiating our relationship with things like social media that we've lent on in the last 2 years. Like, life is getting back to normal now. So you don't need social media to be your crutch. There are other places to go other than online. I think it's important to renegotiate that relationship. When you think about before COVID happened, for me, for my life, social media was one little part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
During the pandemic, social media became a really central piece of my life. And we're now coming back to the world, not exactly as it was, but we're getting back to normal. Social media needs to go back in its box of being a small part of your life, not this main central bit of your life.
Yeah, somebody asked, one of my followers asked a question of you, and it was, how should we be setting up boundaries between our social media life and our real life?
That's an interesting question. I think it depends in what context, really, boundaries between real life and, because I think we've got to start to look at social media as it's not real life. It's just virtual life.
Yep.
You know, there's a lot happening on there. We kind of look social media or IRL is it's a false equivalence, because they're real people on there doing, it's not a fantasy world.
Yeah.
It's not dreamland. So you want to have, if I'm going to speculate on what they might mean, if it depends how much time you're spending on there, like, well, you've just got to be disciplined. There's no, we hate the word discipline now, but you've got to actually be disciplined. And you've got to tell yourself, right, when I've done this, I'm stopping, hold yourself accountable to it and stop it. And how do I do it? You just do it.
Yeah.
That's how you do it. There's no secret thing there. It sucks. It's hard for everybody, even the most disciplined person. The difference is they make themselves do it. So you just do it. If it's in terms of, you're losing yourself in social media, well, then that's something really important you need to pay attention to right now, not mess around with, and get off it. I can't imagine what else they might mean. What do you think?
Well, with you and I, we have a particular context, which is our brands and our work are very online. They're very on social media. Like people, we make money through our social media. It is part of our branding. So like separating yourself from that is quite difficult. If I post a whole bunch of videos and nobody thinks that they're good, then it's like, well, I am not good. So I could be like setting the boundary of knowing the difference between your brand and you.
Yeah. I don't even like to think of myself as a brand. As people call me that sometimes.
You are.
Like, I'm a woman with a phone.
You are a brand.
Am I?
Look, legitimately you are, because whenever I see your posts, I know that it's yours before I even look at the name. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You've kind of branded yourself in a way that when it's like the literal brand, when you brand a, whatever, that's literally what I'm seeing whenever I see you, like your stuff come up.
That makes sense.
I do want to talk about cancel culture for a moment, because you talk a lot about it. We've talked about it before, just DMing each other, but I've had deranged individuals try and cancel me. But why do you think cancel culture exists? Is it because we all feel helpless, so it makes us feel like we can assert some power?
Partly it's just antisocial behavior that's being socially rewarded. Imagine if, whatever, the worst thing you want to do, and you get clapped for it. It's I said that so weird. I don't know how I was trying to say that. You get clapped for it.
In a good way. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's partly that it's been socially rewarded, and we've been in a pressure cooker environment. Everyone's at home, losing the plot. There's nowhere to go but online. You go online and all that aggravation and frustration is channeled into things. And then you get cancel culture, and you get people sort of, you use the wrong word in that thing you just said, right? Be accountable to this minority followers right now. And if the person will, or give up your platform to somebody who's more marginalized than you, These are the kinds of things they say. Again, it's always North Americans who are leading the charge here,
Yeah.
which is so amusing because they are the most wealthy, prosperous country on the planet. And they're on social media has no borders, right? So they attack people from everywhere and indiscriminately based on their very tiny, narrow-minded rules of how a person is meant to behave. So partly it's that. And I think, every single movement, when it grows past a certain threshold or limit, it becomes a safe haven for people who are predatory. Every movement. And I think it's created a safe haven for people that are psychopathic and also, sociopathic, psychopathic, narcissistic, lacking in empathy, predatory. And I think they've created a bubble where people like that can go and just have fun. And it's really, really frightening and there's no checks and balances. There's no safeguards. There's nothing there. Anyone, whatever their motivations, can go, the Ted Bundy of cancellation can be out there.
That would be Chrissy Teigen,
just messing people up.
Yeah, I think it is scary because I've heard arguments from both sides. I've heard like, oh, you think it's cancel culture? How about it's just accountability for what you did wrong? And it's like, yes, but the accountability
I have an answer to that.
Yes, the accountability though is without restraint. It's like, so, if somebody did make a sexist or racist joke 10 years ago on Twitter, then do we take away their career now? And then, okay, for how long? And then it's like, and do we care about their family? Like, what about their kids who won't be able to, who may struggle to put food on the table for the next whatever while? It's usually people in power, so they have some money. So, that we're talking about that, but it's like the accountability has no restraint. It's not, there's no judge who's saying, okay, fine, for 2 weeks, he's not allowed to work. That's, there's no one doing that. It's like forever, you're done, And
it sticks to you. Look at people like, look at people who get cancelled in public, like especially like, not Insta famous people, actually famous people like you or whoever. And when they get cancelled, it sticks to them. They're forever sort of, it doesn't go away. And I think that's the other really dangerous thing. And it's falsely, and again, the same people are fighting for, abolish prisons because prison and carceral logic is such a, anti-human, inhumane thing. But they'll be doing this at the same time. And it's the same carceral logic, if you want to use their wonky, weird terms. And you like you said, there's no restraint to it. But also it's not accountability at all, because accountability is a naturally occurring, or consequences are a naturally occurring phenomenon. There's action and consequence. This is sort of meting out cruel and unusual punishment and then just labeling it consequences. It's not at all the same thing. And that really pisses me off that that's used as an example, because it's a great way to, again, excuse those sociopathic, psychopathic impulses to hurt and punish people who don't think like you. So what's, I think cancel culture exists on both sides. It's not just the left that does it. The right does it too.
Yeah, I agree.
And there's victimhood on both sides as well. They're very aggrieved by all kinds of things. They think the other side is persecuting them. And then they do this cancel culture and stuff like that. And really, I think it's a problem of tribalism, and tribalism kind of on steroids. So, some kind of community, tribe, whatever, is completely normal. It's hardwired into us. We're tribal animals. But when you take tribalism and then you add politics and then put it on social media, you have this mess. And it's, no empathy for anybody who's outside your in-group. Way too much sort of like passes, whatever you want to call it, for your in-group. Everything they do is fine. There's no self-corrective measure in any of these online tribes. There's no one, very rarely is there someone in any of these groups saying, guys, we need to look at what we're doing. No one's doing that. It's just, let's go attack. And they're a demon, we're great. And
I do think this is a really scary little a little thing that you've tapped into, and I think it's like you call them people who are obsessed with their with an ideology, so that they just there's two teams, there's the left and the right, and you join one of the teams and you agree with everything on that team, everything that team believes in. You agree with everything that they do, whether you're on the left or the right. But it's like, but you don't have but your individual thought on any given issue is out the window. It's you're just like, I don't know what I believe. I believe this team in this team over here. And I think once you join a team, you've lost your individuality completely, because you're just like, I don't know what I believe. I believe whatever they believe. And if you give me an issue like off the top of it, I'll have to find out what my side believes in, and then I'll be able to talk to you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it. I call myself Tribeless, and I've put myself in my Twitter bio. It says "not in your tribe." Not that anyone listens anyway, but it's worth putting it out there.
I think there's a tribe of tribeless people.
I used to say politically homeless.
Politically homeless.
There's a tribe of tribeless people. But then politically homeless almost has the connotation that you're looking for a home. So I thought, let's say tribeless instead. But it is true. And even when you you have to join the tribe, you have to hate who they hate, you have to spout all their like slogans and catchphrases. You have to be for their pet issues. And instead, why not just use your brain, this thing that you've been given, and on each particular issue decide what you think is right based on the evidence available to you. Like why? But no, that sounds too much like hard work. It's much easier if the tribe does the thinking for you.
Yes, I want to get to a few questions from my followers for you, because there were some beauties. How do I teach my daughters self-worth with all the distractions of social media?
Please don't teach them self-worth. This is where we ended up with the coddling disaster. These people who just constantly complimenting their children and telling them how special and important they are. Behave like you value yourself. Your kid will watch you and that's how you can teach them. So don't give idle compliments. Don't give compliments without or praise without a reason for that praise, because you're so special, you're so important, you're so blah blah blah. And what that creates is not self-esteem. It creates narcissism, because it's compliments without anything in the real world that they're tethered to. You need something to back that up. Like, so if you have genuinely healthy self-esteem, it's sort of, I think I'm quite clever, I think blah, 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 these are the reasons, but I also know I'm quite shit at these things. So it's a balanced, sensible way of being.
Yeah, I love that.
So if a mother wants to teach her daughter to have self-worth, behave like you have self-worth. Let your daughter watch you, and because kids don't do what you tell them to do, they do what you do. They don't give a shit what you're telling them.
Yes.
So behave in that way, have boundaries, don't let people treat you like shit, treat people well, look after your body, look after yourself, and your kid will learn, to behave that way. And if you feel like there's something extra needed or whatever, have real conversations with your children. Don't be afraid. Don't just throw praise on them. It's like throwing money at them. It's, the new thing. Sit down and really talk to them. Ask, find out what's going on in their lives. Listen. Don't just, tell them they're worthy, which is the new kind of, you are worthy. Great. You've really done something there.
I feel that. Next question. Why does everybody think they have ADHD now?
Oh, okay. So I think there's two reasons for that. There's a few sort of like popular diagnoses at the moment. One of them is autism, ADHD. and trauma is another one. So those are the ones that are constantly being talked about. So everybody now thinks they have them.
Yep.
You think you have every single diagnosis because every diagnosis in the DSM is, first of all, that they're not hard and fast. So, you know, it's an imperfect science. Second of all, every single one of them is rooted in human behavior, and you're going to have the full spectrum of human behavior. So you're going to see something sometimes, oh yeah, I'm moody sometimes. I must have ADHD too. That's what happens.
Yep.
There's something called medical student's disease, where every single student, whatever disease they read in their textbooks, they think they have it. This is a very normal thing all people do. The other reason is social media is giving us something like ADHD type symptoms. You know, you can't form a memory if there's buzzing, pinging notifications in the background. If you're constantly being interrupted, you can't form a memory. You get brain fog. And so everyone has this sort of brain fog. Think about when you're scrolling through your feed. Here's the cute cat video, and then there's "you are oppressed, you piece of crap," and then there's something, you know, something else. It's disorientating.
Yeah.
You can't form it's not a cohesive narrative. So you're getting ADHD type of experience or slight bit of symptoms because of social media. You're reading all this stuff together. Everyone thinks they have ADHD.
I've convinced myself I had autism because of one of those posts.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, because it was like, are you sensitive to sound? And I was like, I get sensitive to sound. Like sometimes, I really do get like, well, I'm really irritated by just somebody walking past or somebody chewing. And I'm like, and I convinced myself that I have autism, but I was like, well, there's probably a few other things that you should look into if you're going to just tell yourself you're autistic. Yeah.
And why can't it just be that I'm a person who's sensitive to sounds? That's gone out of the window now, hasn't it?
I love that. I somebody asked, what do you think about the new what do you think about the new menu from Postmates that's a bottom menu?
I think that, have you ever heard of someone called Rob Henderson? He's come up with this great concept called luxury beliefs.
I do know Rob Henderson,
Yeah, he's wonderful. And he's come up with this really clever guy. He's worth a follow on Twitter. Really interesting stuff. And so this concept of luxury beliefs is that people who are wealthy, one way for them to signal their status and their wealth and in society is to have these luxury beliefs. And just like we talked about earlier with the news, someone who's really actually struggling and working like a dog doesn't have the time to be on the news. So they can't signal these luxury beliefs. It's, again, people with the time on their hands, with the money, the affluence, the university education, that can signal all these sort of like American leftist identity politics based ideas. And I think that a lot of corporations, because it doesn't take any real effort to do anything. You haven't done anything. You've just signaled a luxury belief, bottom friendly, because it's Pride Month. So they're going to show off their luxury belief and show how woke they are, while, you know, doing the thing apparently wokeness is against, which is capitalism. And it's just a big joke. All of it. It's just a clown show that we're all watching, and we're all sort of. All of us, it's a product of America, but none of us are spared from it, really, you know?
My favorite, one of my favorite meme page. I love the gay meme pages on Instagram. They're my favorite ones. There's, what is it? Overheard at a gay bar is one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's a good one.
But I saw one that was like, what, you know, when you're a bottom, what's for dinner? And it's this guy with a pan, and he's putting nothing in the pan and then scraping it all together. And then he puts it in through a filter, and it's just, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
But I mean, I do think that, you know, yes, their luxury belief, they absolutely nailed it with the bottom menu.
Yeah.
They did everything they wanted to do.
They did everything they wanted to do. 'Cause you're going to have, you know, it could also be just a slightly, you know, I don't know. They're just making a joke, and their social media or whoever marketing person has a sense of humor and thought this would be funny. But ultimately, when you look at the kind of the corporations altogether and what they do during Pride Month, is just signal the luxury beliefs. They don't do anything different. They so many of them will contribute to people who are absolutely against pride and everything that it stands for. So they'll give them money, these corporations, while they put a rainbow in their logo. It's just, I don't know. The conclusion I've come to after the last 2 years is America is a very, very, very strange country. Very strange place.
Yeah. I think my favorite is when they put, like, meme pages put up the corporation's rainbow sign next to the Middle Eastern.
Yeah.
Middle Eastern sign, which hasn't changed on Twitter at all.
Hasn't changed one bit.
No.
Middle Eastern or Eastern European, there's quite a few countries actually that's not allowed. Yeah. But in the West, yeah.
Yeah. You got to scream it from the rooftops. What about, we've already talked about that. Okay. We're getting to the end. Okay. This is, if you don't mind me asking, this is somewhat of a personal question. I know you've been through some grief and loss recently, and a lot of people either are or will be dealing with that. How have you been dealing with grief?
It's a really difficult one. And I think it would be really easy for me to give you some therapist-y answer to this. And I'm not going to do that because there's a glitch in my brain that doesn't let me tell lies. So I lost my mum. I've actually lost 3 people in the last 2 years, 3 big bereavements. So it has knocked me sideways. And the most recent and probably the biggest one was my mum. And it's been a huge shock to the system. And the thing I've found about grief is that it's not what you expect, especially a grief like that. When you lose a parent, you expect to be absolutely decimated and destroyed, and you are, but somehow you keep putting one foot in front of the other and walking at the same time. So you expect your world is going to end, and it's like the worst thing happens, but at the same time it's like, I'm still alive though, and the world is still turning. It's a really strange feeling to go through, and all I'd say is just take it one day at a time. Look after yourself as best you can. You can and you should compartmentalize if you wanna live a life, and don't pretend and don't follow any other people's ideas of what you should do. Listen to yourself. If you're grieving and you're having a really tough day, let yourself grieve. Let yourself cry. Let yourself, you're gonna feel the most searing, horrible pain, but you're gonna survive it. And there's other days where you're going to feel almost like dissociated from it. And there's other days where you're going to be kind of sad, but you're getting through the day anyway. And you just need to listen to yourself and look after yourself. And generally I find, and this is very not politically correct advice, when you're not feeling very good, one of the things that makes you feel better really, really quickly is helping somebody else with something. That makes you feel good really quickly. And I know this is against the narcissistic culture of the West, but I think, and for me, that's been being there for my dad, especially, and for my family, and being much more dialed in. And don't let something like grief pass you by without learning something from it. Again, I know you're not supposed to learn a lesson from your trauma. Well, maybe you should. And don't let something like that pass you by without you becoming a bit more aware of the fact that you have a limited time on earth. The people you love aren't going to be around forever. And that when you think about when you're on your own deathbed and think about your own mortality, you're going to care a lot more about the people you loved and how you were there for them than anything you achieved or didn't achieve. So yeah, it's a complex one. Probably do a whole podcast talking about grief quite easily, but that's what I have to say in a short space of time.
I really like that. I particularly like the idea of getting off yourself a little bit. Sometimes you're just in the middle of your own the storm that's in your head, And the only way that you can clear
Yeah.
that storm is just actually by listening to other people or talking to other people, asking them questions, doing something nice for them. It doesn't have to be too fancy. Like sometimes you just
No.
walk out the door and say good day to somebody and everything clears.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just walking out the door as well. We're such indoor creatures now.
Mm-hmm.
You need to go outside. You know, like all this kind of common sense, ancient wisdom. There's something to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
get some fresh air, go outside, see people. They, you know, these things didn't come out of a vacuum. They all come from something. So go outside, see people, move your body a bit. That's something I found quite helpful. I gained a lot of weight over the pandemic. So kind of like getting my, you know, getting back into looking after myself, that's made a very big difference as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of, you know, all of those things, move your body a bit. You'll be surprised at how you feel. You know, all the stress you walk into the gym with, you kind of walk out feeling very unburdened. It does, they do make a difference.
Well, it's like if you, I think you do follow Andrew Huberman, but he's fantastic. But one thing he says is your brain was designed to help to make your body move. The reason that you have a brain is to make your body move. So if you think about like, oh, I'm having trouble in the brain, it's like, well, there's one thing your brain really wants you to do. And it's to move in general. You don't have to do a fancy thing, deadlifts, squats, and getting the right technique. Who cares? Go for a walk. It really does do something.
It's true. It is true. Especially if I'm quite an introverted type of person, and I'm a workaholic and I work from home. So with those things combined, you know, it can be a week sometimes before I leave my house, and I've had to like consciously say to myself, especially with, I have a treadmill in the house, I have a multi-gym, and I have a garden. So I don't need to go anywhere.
Yes.
So I've had to make myself, and there's a park down the road. And, you know, you walk down the road to the park, have a few circles of the park, and you're like, wow, it's like I've been on holiday.
Yes.
It's like a completely different outlook. It's important.
It really is. I looked at your website and I saw that there are some courses on there that you can take. Is that right?
Yeah, I have a membership, which is actually kind of, so it started off and I thought, all the things I criticized, let me teach you the something that I think is more sensible. So let me do a kind of solution to that. What's happened with this membership is that a lot of the people, so people with huge platforms have been buying my membership, breaking into it and plagiarizing it, and my paid content. Yeah. So instead, what I'm going to do is put all that information into a book, and I'm going to turn the membership into more of like a bit of a society where we can actually come and talk about these things, talk about everything we've talked about in this. So there'll still be courses on there. There'll still be good information on there. But not to the level that I was giving away before because of this issue. And have hangouts with people where you can actually just have a discussion, and you can talk about all these things that you would get cancelled for talking about on social media in a real way. And you know, prioritizing both logic and empathy, behaving like adults, all those kinds of things, and just connect other people who feel similarly.
There was some self-help advice that I saw ages ago. It was like it was give your best away. And I like that idea because, you know, usually you got a few secrets. You're like, that's mine. That's going to make me millions. I'm going to keep it. That's mine. But with the great thing, you know, even though it sucks when people plagiarize your work because it's literally stealing, just know, you know, you've given your best away.
Yeah.
And so energetically, somehow I mean, I don't believe in karma, but somehow that's going to do you a few favors somewhere in the universe.
Yeah, I hope so. I went through a phase where I got really sort of like, I'm not giving anything away. I'm tired of this. And then I think recently I just thought, it's really tiring living like that. Fuck it. Like if they're going to like steal everything, let them. But it feels better for me to just be to just be a bit like free and relaxed. You know, when the more constricted you are, with like, I'm being protective, I'm protecting myself, I'm not giving all these things away, and I don't want to partly get cancelled for saying this, I don't want someone to steal this. You get in that kind of defensive place with social media. And you know, I think my mum's death has really changed me. And one of the things is just, what's going to happen is going to happen anyway, isn't it? So you may as well just be how you want to be. And regardless of how careful you are with your speech, if someone's determined to cancel you, they will. And if they want to plagiarize you, they will. And whatever they're going to do it
Maybe
anyway.
both.
So you may as well just
plagiarize and cancel you. That'll really eradicate the competition.
That's happened. That's very, very sociopathic, actually, to do that. But that's actually happened with someone.
What a world. What a world. Okay, so if you want to know more about what Seerut's up to, Seerut, I got it right at the beginning. And
Seerut.
Yeah, Seerut. If you want to know more,
and you
I know, my anglicized, I just ruined it. If you want to know more about what we've talked about, the accountability, responsibility, and all these things, check out Seerut's website for more. And how else can we follow you and see what you're up to?
And find me. I'm on Instagram, and I'm on Twitter, and I'm on Substack. I've just recently started the Substack. And I'm kind of talking a lot about this kind of stuff on Substack, the issues with Instagram therapy, cancel culture. That article's coming up soon. Just, you know, can we all just be normal? Is that possible?
That's a great, it's a great question. Actually, somebody did ask a question, because you do, you know, you are, as mentioned, you were critical, I'm critical of mainstream social media therapy. Are there some sites, are there some pages on Instagram particularly that you like, that you think offer good advice?
They're usually not therapy pages. It's often more philosophy pages, right? Or, you know, writers or people like, you know, stuff about stoicism. Yeah. That's what I think is good advice and interesting. I'm quite careful now about not endorsing, you know, and saying this person's great, you should follow them, because the last time I did that, they immediately posted something so deeply embarrassing. Everybody's gonna think I agree with this.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, that's fair. That's really fair. But the Stoics are pretty good, because you can't cancel Marcus Aurelius. Yeah. If you've felt like, I
mean, they can try,
yeah,
but no, you can't. And Marcus, like the Stoics, if there's one philosophy, it's very, very close to the philosophy I actually grew up with, which is Sikhism. The Stoics, and what I like about literature, and you know, when it goes a little bit more into the realm of metaphor and myth and storytelling, is that you come back to the individual, as opposed to, you know, some of this very generalized, everybody has to do this and everybody doesn't do that. I think when you look at literature and philosophy and myth, it invites you into yourself. And I think that's really important. We need a little bit more of that, going into yourself in a self-reflective way, as opposed to a narcissistic, self-aggrandizing way. And understanding there are individual differences, and the same rule doesn't apply to everybody. And just being generally a bit more sensible.
I have really enjoyed talking to you and meeting you, even though we've chatted online before.
Me too.
But yeah, it's been a real pleasure. So thank you, Seerut.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Don't go anywhere. Don't leave the